Hi, y'all, and welcome to tonight's live stream. We are covering the James Craig trial, and it is already a trial with more bombshells than I've ever seen in any one trial. James Craig, Colorado dentist, is accused of poisoning his wife Angela and a host of other crimes that just kind of followed on from that as he tried to wriggle his way out of it while he was in jail. But it turns out that the prosecution waited until day 10 of the trial to drop the biggest bombshell of all. They believe they actually caught James Craig on video poisoning his wife. They put it all together in an unbelievably powerful presentation that covers basically their whole case. They're still not finished with that yet. That'll happen again on Monday. And of course, cross-examination will be next. So at this stage, it's kind of like a pro basketball team taking on a middle school team. I'm not talking about the lawyers or anything like that. I'm just saying the facts are so outweighing, the prosecution's facts are so outweighing what the defense has been able to present so far. But of course, we have not gotten to the defense case yet. And today, for the first time, we finally saw the glimmer of a potentially viable theory for the defense. Is it possible? Could James Craig pull the greatest come from behind Hail Mary of all time? Or is the die already cast on this trial? So let's get into it. Detective Bobby Joe Olson, the lead detective in the case, was on the stand all day. Now, she's not just a lead detective. She's also one of the people that he tried to get someone to kill in a murder for hire plot, according to prosecutors. That's another count in the case. And today they put together all of the motives, information that the jury might want for financial motive to kill Angela Craig. How about 4 million of them? Check. Ordering poison? Check. We already knew that part. Coincidentally being alone in the room with her every time she crashed at the hospital? Check. But the biggest one of all is this videotape. We're going to talk about that. Special shout out to our first 5 in the chat tonight. Bama Queen, Bonbon RPH, Oklahoma GG, Susie Q, and Betsy. If you haven't yet, would you please hit the like button? It really helps YouTube to realize we're here. And also, if you aren't subscribed, we would love to have you specifically back for more videos. So let's get into what Detective Bobby Joe Olson said. And we're going to not just go through that. I've got the beginning of our timeline. I've been talking about the timeline the whole time. To me, the most interesting part will be when we mix in, and I haven't done this part yet, but when we mix in the communications between Angela and James Craig and Mistress 1 and James Craig and Mistress 2, and we kind of see how those all play out. That's really going to be fascinating. But what we had today was something we didn't even know we had. Videotape coming from inside the home of James Craig. Unbelievable. Who put this camera in? I don't know. But there is actually video of their kitchen. You actually hear them talking to each other. There you have it. I don't know who's doing that, but someone put a video camera in their kitchen. So Detective Bobby Joe Olson started off talking about a letter that the defendants, James Craig's parents, received. And it was anonymous, but it was received, and it said that Angie had hired someone to frame James Craig, and they were supposed to be paid $66,000. The theory is James Craig believes, his defense is, that Angela wanted to unalive herself. She did this to herself. Yeah, maybe he bought the poison, depending on which story you hear, but she wanted this. She wanted to do it. She did it herself. So there was this letter said, yeah, Angie not just wanted to harm herself, but she actually wanted to frame her husband for what had happened. And she was going to pay $66,000 to someone to help her. But we've seen that very number before, the prosecution pointed out, because one of the women that he was romantically involved with, James Craig, was a woman named Carrie Hegeseth. And she said something, he had been giving her money. He said, I don't really have any money for this anymore. But I actually made $66,000 in January alone. And I wish I could share that with you. And she said something to him like, hitting up a homeless person feels like the only option. And that's when he said, I made $66,000 in January and desperately want to share it with you. So the prosecution is suggesting there's some connection. I frankly couldn't think of any connection between the two. One is money Angela would pay to hire someone to frame James Craig. So she would actually be paying it out. The other was income that James said he received. It is a weird number for them to pick, but I didn't really understand how those two were connected. But I throw that out there. If you have an idea, please put that in the chat or the comments. So one of the most important things that we saw today physically was the pink top shaker bottle. We had seen it in photographs of what was sitting on the nightstand right next to Angela Craig's bed before she fell ill one of the 3 times. And that pink top shaker bottle was presented there in court. The witness showed it to us. There was also talk about life insurance. There were multiple policies that James Craig had on Angela. With Kansas City Life, he had 2 active policies, both of them named James Craig as the beneficiary if anything happened to Angela. The total coverage was $2 million. And then there were more policies with Lincoln Life Insurance. Again, 2 active policies. And if Angela died, then James Craig was the beneficiary. So another $2 million, total of $4 million in coverage. And we had heard that James Craig was having financial difficulties. So did he look at Angela as his financial ticket on the way out? Then we got into the home surveillance video, the video right there in the kitchen where we actually saw the kitchen. We actually saw James Craig, Angela walking around. We saw James go back and forth to the bedroom multiple times. And they told us there were several things that might have been something that in a different case might have suggested that there were problems with the investigation. One was that of all the video cameras around the house, and apparently there were several, only one had audio. That was the one in the kitchen, but they couldn't get it to duplicate. The only way they were able to do it, they put it and connected it to a large DVR TV screen in their conference room, and they sat there with their body cam and they literally recorded it with body cam. And that was the only way. But you can imagine how that changes both the sound and the video, because you're watching a body cam of a video. And for the people watching through the court feed, the TV is turned to the side. So you're watching just a sideways view of a body cam taking a picture of a video. So it does get kind of distorted. And then the sound is original sound to the body cam to whatever recording device it went to play it there in the courtroom. So it was multiple layers of that. The jury would have gotten a much better view of that. It was still absolutely fascinating. And the fact that they have this is incredible. And the work they did to put all of this together, just absolutely amazing. Let me say a shout out to Tara, who has no idea why Angela Craig stayed. I think many people would ask that question. Maybe financial, maybe self-esteem, who knows? As she is writing, as Tara is writing, who knows? It was indeed a surprise, I think, probably to many people. And she had not shared a lot of what was going on in their marriage with other people. We've learned that from the testimony. Even her closest friend, her sister, who was her deeply personal friend as well, they had no idea about what was going on. Jackie P, thank you for gifting 5 Lawyerly memberships. Jackie P is a regular gifter of Lawyerly memberships. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Jackie. And Beth as well. Thank you so much, both of you. All right. So there were some things that, like I said, that whole body cam, can't hear the audio thing was strange. And additionally, there were periods, the defense pointed out, where it would just skip. So there would be a little break of a period of time, one time as long as 12 minutes in the middle of a conversation between James Craig and Angela Craig. And in a different case, I think there could have been some hay made with that by the defense, because they would say, if they had any way to cast a suggestion that there was something going on with law enforcement, that they were trying to get James Craig. The problem is that throughout this case, the defense has had to resort to the argument that their guy is a liar and a cheat, and everybody knows it. They're actually making that argument to suggest, hey, Angela was staying with him, so he didn't need to unalive her just because he was lying and cheating. He'd been doing that for years. So the fact that they have pushed that so hard, I think, makes it really difficult for them to have the sort of moral high ground where they can point at law enforcement and say, oh, well, there are gaps in this. So law enforcement just comes in and says, there are gaps. We don't know why. Here they are. We admit it up front. And they do a voir dire, the defense does, where they come in and ask questions to kind of explain and point this out to the jury. But it really doesn't undermine the testimony from law enforcement. Just at this point, I think they've lost that ability to like I say, capture that high ground. So, and the way I would say it is, it's reached the point where I think for most of the jury, they're going to trust law enforcement more than they trust James Craig in this situation, because the defense told them not to trust James Craig. So if they had any inclination to do that, the defense told them not to. So I think that's going to be a problem for them. All right, I think we're ready now for our timeline. Very excited to start our timeline for this case. I have never seen a case that cries out for a timeline more than this one. And so I'm going to be beefing this out. It's kind of an overwhelming proposition because there is so much detail, but this is a great start, because right here, we're going to see what happened on the video camera that we saw today. So let me add to the stage. And what I've done, just to kind of give you an overview, you can see what we're going to be looking at together. We've got the days are divided there. This is all in 2023. So each day, if they had anything, I put down what they had. They had a lot of video, some of it really specific. It might be things like a video from outside of the house showing James Craig leaving in their Subaru car. That's, in fact, the very first one. And then it might have him coming back, and it might have a video in the kitchen. It was very specific things. So what they proved in this first day for February 27th is that James Craig left the house driving the Subaru, and he went, and I will say it's a little vaguer than that. Let me make this a little bigger. It's a little vaguer than that, because technically what you have, you will have video of James walking out to the car and getting in the Subaru. And then you have the fact that at that point, they can tell from, if he's driving the Expedition, there was some kind of GPS inside the vehicle. And additionally, his cell phone, of course, had GPS. So they can track the vicinity of where he was. And they can tell he was in the vicinity of the cell tower that's right next to or nearest Summerbrook Dental, his dental office. So they can tell that. But it could be, and the defense has pointed that out, we've seen this in other cases as well, it is possible that even though he was pinging off that cell tower, that maybe that cell tower was just super busy and he was actually nearer another one. It's possible, but it's likely that he was in the area closest to that cell tower. That's just likely. And then you've also got directions of the cell tower, and they've had a witness go through all of that. In fact, that was yesterday. By the way, if you are just coming in, would you hit that like button? It'll really help us. All right, so James Craig leaves driving the Subaru. We watch him leave in the video that's right outside their driveway there at their home. And The reason this is so important is this is the first day when law enforcement finds that someone has been using the computer in exam room 9 at the Summerbrook dental office to search for poisons. And that happens to be the very exam room where the office manager oddly spotted Craig in there late one night. I was like, what are you doing in here? And he was using the computer, and they did not really know why. But, it was his dental office. Why he wasn't using his actual office, they weren't sure, but there he was in exam room 9. And what they found was that there were poison searches that night. And then you see James Craig come back home. Angela, this whole time, is at home, or at least at the beginning of this, when the searches are done. The reason that's important is, remember that James Craig has suggested that Angela is actually the one wanting the poison, that she's searching for poison too. And yet, who does the first searches? James Craig. So then, similar to that, on the next day, the 28th, again, James is driving away in the Subaru, and Google searches are done at Summerbrook Dental when he is right in that area. And then he drives the Subaru back to the house. And so again, we see that. March 1, similar things. He's at the office. More poison searches are being made. This time he's using the expedition vehicle, and both of those go over to the area vicinity of Summerbrook Dental and then back to the house. March 4th, one of the very best pieces of evidence I think they've had. It was so well done. I mean, it took a lot of creativity, frankly, to put this together. It was really kind of amazing. But what happened was that on March 4th, they actually have the post office truck going by. The United States Postal Service truck goes right by the house, and you see that on video. What they explained to us is the entire neighborhood has all their boxes together right at the end of the street to the right. And what we watch is the mail truck goes by to the left, meaning the mail has just been dropped off for the entire neighborhood. And you see James Craig within 2 minutes of this, he walks out toward the mailboxes, comes back carrying something. And there's also confirmation on the Amazon order that he did that he received a package, or that arsenic, let me rephrase that arsenic was delivered on March 4th and that it was put inside James Craig's mailbox. So you've got James Craig ordering it, James Craig's credit card, and you've got video of him walking to the mailbox at the exact time it's delivered and picking up the mail. Then there's a letter that he wrote to Cassie, who is one of the people who has been talked about in the case. She is the ex-girlfriend of one of the inmates he tried to hire for various things. And he was trying to hire Cassie to fabricate some evidence, according to something we heard yesterday. And what he told her in a letter he wrote to her was, at the beginning of March, I had arsenic delivered to the house. So all of that is fitting together for the March 4th timeframe. So let's head into March 6th. This is an all-important day. On March 4th, Angela wasn't even in town. She was out of town at a convention with her sister in Utah. She gets back on the 5th. The first day she gets sick is the 6th of March. And we also see that what happens is James Craig is seen on video inside his own home microwaving and mixing something. Then 40 minutes later, we see Angela drinking something. Now, was it exactly the same? I don't know. And there was conversation between them. I tried to find other people who were brave enough to try to transcribe that, and I couldn't find anyone who was actually trying to say what they were saying. It's not great quality sound by the time it comes through. I thought I heard the following. This is just an I thought I heard. You cannot take this as absolute fact. But I thought she said something about, I wonder why. I thought she said something about getting tested, that James said something about had a hard time breathing. And then mostly it just seemed like kind of ordinary chit chat. Nobody seemed to be particularly upset or discussing anything very, just sort of like, oh, where do the kids have to go today? Sort of discussion. It wasn't anything dramatic. So James Craig drives the Subaru away from the house. We see the video of that at 6:30. And at 7:03 a.m., Angela texts him saying, hey, I don't feel good. Now, remember, we are now just an hour and a half from the time that Angela drank something. We heard from the daughters that their regular custom for all the adults, not the two little girls, but all the adults or teenagers, drank a fruit smoothie, or they didn't actually use the word fruit, a smoothie, a protein shake, something like that, for breakfast. That was what they had. And so it wouldn't be a surprise that Angela was drinking something. But we did see James Craig making something. Did he give that to Angela? No absolute proof, but the prosecution is saying it looks like there could be connection here. That very day, remember, Angela texts Craig, I don't feel well. And he starts doing searches on the computer in exam room 9. And those searches are not, could she have a cold? Is COVID around in the neighborhood? None of that. It's related to poison. And the prosecution says, what? Why? What does he have to, why does he think there's any poison involved in this at all? So then he goes back home and drives the expedition away from home. There's a lot of back and forth. This is also the very same day that he tells the office manager, Caitlin Romero, who testified at trial, that he is going to be getting a personal package. And could you please put it, don't open it, just put it on my desk when it comes in. She says, sure. We know that didn't actually happen. Instead, accidentally, one of the people working at the front desk opened it. They were, what is this bizarre silver canister thing? And they took it to the office manager, who's looked at it, looked at the invoice. It said potassium cyanide. Wonder what that is. Packaged it back up, sealed it, and put it back on his desk. He thought and told people later, told his business partner, you couldn't possibly know what was in the box because it was never open. And his business partner were like, well, actually it was. And everybody's been Googling potassium cyanide. So we do know that was what was in it. So then that very day, there is a purchase receipt for oleander, another poison. It's an invoice addressed to James Craig to be delivered to Jim Craig personal, and now it's going to go to the Summerbrook dental office. Then there is a home video of an argument between Angela and James Craig. It would have been super useful to have had, obviously a transcript, or for the detective to have been able to be asked, what did you hear in this? The defense objected to that, and rightly so. That really would be improper for them to do. But it was a shame, because it would have been a big help if there had been questions like, and did you hear her say this and that? And did he say this? I will tell you what I thought I heard. Just take it for what it's worth. Nobody in their right mind would ever think something, and someone treated me like I did it to myself, like nothing I said could be believed. And James, I didn't say you did it. I never said I think she took drugs, but I wanted that for me too, because you were accusing me. And James said, you weren't there for me. And Angela said, you didn't even ask. And Angela said, something is a natural part of human existence because we are curious creatures, but thinking about unaliving would not be normal. The reason why I think this was so important, and I would love to know more about this, I'd love to have good quality sound, I'd love to have it played back several times, is it's conceivable that what she's talking about is the very essence of James Craig's case. His case is she wanted to do this to herself. This is all her fault. And it sounds like she's saying just the opposite, that would be not right, that he told people that, and then they didn't believe her. They treated her like nothing could be believed. But frankly, it just wasn't clear enough to say that for absolute sure. All right, so there was in the next day, March 8th, we see the kitchen video again, and there's more conversation between James and Angela, very casual. And I thought I heard James say, well, you haven't been eating. And Angela said, well, I haven't exercised. Like, I'm not really hungry, in other words. And James said, well, please don't exercise. And says, if you exercise and pass out on the bathroom floor, because she did her cycling on a stationary bike in the bathroom. And then he said, I thought he said, I can never tell if your memory is impacted or not. So continuing on March 8th, that is the day that both James Craig's expedition and his phone travel from Summerbrook Dental, his office, out to Midland Scientific. As it turns out, we have heard from someone at Midland Scientific. They didn't get the day exactly right, but someone working on the warehouse there said, strangest thing happened. I was sitting out here on the warehouse loading dock when suddenly this guy in scrubs walks up to the back and it's like, hey, where's the store around here? And we told him, we don't have a store. This is just a loading area. We don't have a storefront anymore. We used to, but we don't have that anymore. And so then that Midland Science, that's the exact day that there was also an order placed in James Craig's name from Exam Room 9's computer that for cyanide, potassium cyanide from Midland Scientific. And here is their local office, which it turns out does not have a storefront. And he had ordered it for, hopefully this is in stock and I can come pick it up tomorrow. So the guy on the loading dock, the reason this became something that anyone even knew about is because the guy on the loading dock, when this story broke and there was a picture of James Craig, he's like, I know that guy. That guy came to our loading dock in scrubs. And so he told people he worked with and they called law enforcement, and that's how the story came out. And it turns out there's a lot of evidence around what he's saying, including that there was actual travel out there. Same day, there's also James Craig being in and out of the fridge and handling a black shaker bottle. At one point, the prosecution said, does Angela ask what he's doing? And then you've got, very importantly, that evening, the first purchase of Visine, which has a chemical in it, tetrahydrozoline, which is something that is a poison if ingested. Obviously, Visine can be used in an eye, but you're not supposed to do anything other than that. So James Craig leaves in his Subaru at 10:39. And his vehicle or his phone goes, and maybe they don't even have the phone there, but there's a receipt from King Supers where he buys 12 bottles of Visine. And then at 10:54, he comes back in the Subaru. So just a quick trip out just to buy the Visine is what it looks like. Let me say, hey, Suki Loves Cookies is a new member. We are really glad to have you, Suki. Tara sounds like maybe she knows some people. I appreciate your information. And what a shame. It really is appalling. And you'll hear something in a minute, Tara, that's really going to drive you crazy. Thank you for the super chat. And Finn's mom, thank you for the super sticker. Thank you, all of you. All right. So next day, March 9th, again, James Craig is mixing something in a shaker bottle 2 times this day, and he's putting it right by where Angela is sitting. Now, remember, Angela first got sick on the 6th. She went to the urgent care, to the ER. Everybody sent her home, but she's not better. She's been feeling bad just the whole time. And by the 9th, she's really not feeling good. So James Craig put something right by where she's going to be sitting on the couch. And the witness said, I can't tell in the video if Angela's already there or if she's going to be there, but that's where she was sitting. So he puts it right there. And it sounded to me like there was a third person in the room who said something about Angela drinking a lot of water yesterday and taking a nice long bath, or she did that. Her friend, she's so sick, she calls her friend. They haven't really talked in a while, but they were best friends. And her friend has a child who has type 1 diabetes. So this friend, she says, can you check my blood sugar? Because I don't know what's wrong with me. And I'm thinking possibly diabetes. I mean, my family has diabetes. So her friend Nikki Harmon arrives to check the blood sugar. You see that on the video. And you see James Craig gathering items. You see him checking on this black shaker bottle, mixing something. He does it at night as well as in the morning. And then and what happens on the 9th is Angela has to go back to the hospital because she's so sick. And this time they admit her, and she's there all the way through the 14th, the 9th through the 14th. So in this particular time, once again, you have James Craig leaving the house in the expedition and going to King Soopers again. There's another receipt, this time for 7 bottles of Visine, total 19 bottles of Visine purchased. And it's purchased with a credit card, which has the last 4 digits that match James Craig's credit card. And then, so this time the phone and the expedition both show he's actually in the vicinity of King Soopers, and then he's back at the house. There's a gap there in time where there's extra time. So don't know exactly how that happened, but it seems like he was gone a little extra. So then the next day, for some strange reason, James Craig makes repeated trips to the office. He is expecting cyanide that day. Is he going to look for the cyanide? Is he checking over and over to see, has it come? Remember the personal package? Is that what it is? And finally, toward the end of the day, by the way, the cyanide does not arrive on the 11th. It doesn't come until the 13th. But you can see that there are repeated trips, 5 of them. Some of them may not be full trips. There may be some back and forth. Some of them are longer. Some of them are shorter. But what you've got is him going over and over to the office throughout the day. So, and at 7:19 p.m., you have him writing from his email address that he used for private communications, often with women, from seeking.com. It was a jimandwaffles@gmail.com. And he emails the woman who is his contact at Midland Scientific saying, wow, it's 7:30 at night and I've been waiting all day at my office, which we know is not exactly true, and for the shipment. And boy, I wish y'all had told me that this was not going to be able to be done overnight like you said it was, because here I was waiting for it. He'd come up with various reasons why he needed it. For example, he was teaching a class that was going to be Friday and Saturday. So why he would wait all day for Saturday if it was already over, I don't know. But in any event, he was expecting the cyanide and it never got there. Then something super, super important. Remember, Angela is in the hospital. She's been there 2 days. So at 10:53 p.m., you can see James Craig packing a bag at the house and then leaving. It's a dark bag. And according to the witness, Detective Olson, it's consistent with the backpack that they found there at the house. It was gray, had a single strap. So he drives the expedition away from the house to the hospital. And notice the timing on this, it's so tight. At 11:32 p.m., you see him leaving the driveway, pulling out and driving off. Then, and we know that he goes to Parker Adventist Hospital at that point. He goes there to visit Angela. And at 12:30 a.m., her medical records show that she has a rapid response. What we know from various witnesses who have testified is that James Craig was alone in the room with her. The room was darkened, which would be customary at night. And he was there in the room with her, sitting on a chair, supposedly asleep. Remember, he hasn't been there very long. It's 11:32 that he's leaving to go there. It was a 25, maybe that was the University of Colorado's 25-minute ride, but it was a distance in any event. So he's barely there. And then by 12:30, they've already called a rapid response team because she is crashing. Alarms are sounding, and yet James Craig is sleeping. Said he thought, gosh, she was just snoring really hard. That happens within probably about 20 minutes of the time that James Craig got to the hospital. The prosecutor got it down to, I think, 22 minutes. And that's how long he he had before she crashed on the 11th. He was the only one in the room. The prosecution believes he poisoned her, that whatever was in that bag included poison. Now, the arsenic was delivered to his office on March 13th. And there was a cell phone. You know what? That is incorrect. I'm going to just fix that while I'm thinking about it. That is cyanide was delivered to his office. That is misspelled. Okay. Cyanide was delivered to his office. We know his cell phone is in the area of his dentist's office. Nothing abnormal about that. But we also have, in a letter he wrote to one of the people he was trying to get to fabricate some evidence, he wrote, I had arsenic delivered to the house, and on 3/13, I had cyanide delivered to my office. And yep, that's exactly correct. He did. He had that delivered. Mildred says she is very surprised that James did not demand to speak to a manager about why his poison was not being delivered on time. Yeah, he definitely was very upset and outraged that he had not received this for his very important dental experiment that he was doing, and that he wanted to publish in the NIH journal. All right, so the 14th, Angela is finally home from the hospital. She gets in that afternoon about 4:16 p.m. And once again, we see Jim Craig, and this one's super important, mixing a bottle with a pink top. Why is that ultra important? Because that pink topped bottle, or at least one identical to it, is found right by her bed on the nightstand. And she, according to the prosecution, they believe she drank from that bottle, and they found tetrahydrozoline in it, and they believe he mixed that night. And he is shown grabbing that very bottle with the pink top from beneath the kitchen island. So there's actual showing him touching it that night. And so the next day, we've got more of the bottle with the pink top. And this is the day when Angela will go back to the hospital for the last time. This time, she told her brother she wanted to go to a different hospital. Parker Adventist didn't figure out what was wrong with her last time. She wants to go to the University of Colorado hospital. So, but early in the morning, before that happens, you see James Craig at the fridge. The pink top bottle is in the sink. Then you see James Craig walking toward the bedroom. He's carrying something. You can't see what it is. And the pink top bottle is not in the sink anymore. And at this point, the defense attorney said, well, de voir dire, well, isn't it true that you don't really know that he's carrying the bottle? The detective, it's like, she had this kind of smirk, this kind of pitying smile. She goes, well, yes, that is true, but it's not in the sink anymore. We have a photograph of that. We have that on video, that it was there and now it's not there. And the defense attorney just seems sort of downcast. Let's put it that way. Very, very sad. It was a tough day for the defense. That's what I would say. So, March 14th, March 15th, James Craig leaves for the office at 6:49 in the morning, and he is then by 11 o'clock, he has gotten the call from Angela's brother and his wife, who have come to help with the kids because Angela is feeling so poorly. And they say she's way worse, and we're taking her to the hospital right now. And James Craig leaves the dental office and goes in to be with Angela at University of Colorado Hospital. So you see his phone, his expedition going in. You see, and I didn't have time to proof this before we got on, so we'll have to do that later because I've got a lot to add to this anyway. So, but one of the critical things is down there at about 12:03, because everybody knew James Craig came to the hospital. What he said to the brother of Angela was, yeah, I got to go into the office and I need to do a few things, but I'll be back. Since she's sick, I'll be back. But what happened instead, the prosecutors repeatedly said, "Are you sure office?" He didn't say anything about going home. And everyone, no, he said he was going to the office. What he did instead was he went home. And he's shown in the house there on that camera in the kitchen, carrying things around. Then he's shown leaving the house in the expedition. And then he shows up at the University of Colorado Hospital. And he shows up, and you can see him on the video that goes around the security there at the hospital. You can see him going through security. So you know when he arrives at the hospital, and you then see him. These may be off for daylight savings, these two numbers right here. But he arrives at the hospital. You see him, and he brings food for the brother. So you see him bringing that in. And then I'm going to switch over here because it was just almost impossible to put into all of that. So, okay, here's what happens next. And it is absolutely unbelievable. So they believe that they have him exiting Angela's room. Well, not they believe. They showed us video of James Craig leaving her room and going into the bathroom there. He had to go past the nurse's station, turn in a little hall, but you can see it. It's pretty open. You can see him. There's only maybe 10 feet where you can't see him. And then he peers right here, goes into the bathroom over there. And he comes out, and the prosecutor says, does he have something in his hand? Now, what he said was, does he have a syringe in his hand? And the defense objected that that was a characterization of it. And the jury needed to decide for itself what he had in his hand. So they settled for, was it a thin, white, or clear object in his hand? Yes, it was. So then you see him go back into Angela's room. Then he and his brother-in-law, Angela's brother, exit the room. And 10 minutes later, and we know from the brother-in-law that James said, okay, you can go now. Thank you for being here. And so he went back on home, started to go back on home. He got about 10 or 15 minutes in when he got a call. But in that interim time, James Craig goes into Angela's room. No one has entered the room during this period. So it's just James Craig in the room. And he is in the room about 60 seconds before he comes out to the nurse's station. And he goes to them and he points to his arm. We know from what they said that he told them that Angela was saying her arm really hurt. So they go in there and bedlam breaks loose. It is a nightmare. Everything is going on. She has crashed again with only James Craig in the room, and she has crashed. Tons of people mob the room trying to help her. There's just a whole team in there trying to figure out what is wrong. She's so unstable for a while, they can't even take her for a CT scan. And the doctor literally goes with her to the CT scan. That's how unstable she is. So she is very, very ill. And what you see after he comes out and all the nurses are in there, James Craig walks down the hall again. This time, instead of turning toward the bathroom, he turns to the left. And the defense made the mistake of saying, and what's down that hall? It's ultimately a dead end, isn't it? And again, Detective Olson, I am so sorry for you, smiles like, actually, first, there's an exit before the dead end. There's not a bathroom, and it is the hospital's main sharps container, meaning this is the main container when people want to throw away syringes with needles on them. This is what they use. And he went down that hall. And about 7 minutes later, you see him come back. Again, like I say, the attorney seemed kind of defeated. So the timeline was just absolutely explosive today. And we got even more in the form of a note from Craig's, from his phone, one of the notes that you can do on your iPhone. And it was entitled, of all things, Timeline, 4 pages of it. And it was, according to the prosecution, the very first written statement by James Craig about what had happened to Angela Craig. It did not mention anything about the game of chicken. It did not mention Angela having set him up. It did talk about Angela wanting to unalive herself. Here is the story that was told in this letter that he wrote, or the note that he wrote. He said he was having affairs with 6 different women, which means the prosecution has not managed to find all of them, because we've only heard from 4 that I can think of. So, and that Angela found out when he was out of town on a ski trip with one of them. So then he went to Las Vegas and had another affair, he said in this note. And then I went home and again asked for a divorce, as if he'd been wanting one all the time. We saw the notes back and forth where it was very much not like that. And she said she was just going to end her life. He said, I begged her not to do that, but she said she couldn't get a divorce. And Angela began talking about driving her car. She was worried that would not work. Maybe she would be hurt, maimed. And then she started talking about poison and said, well, and they thought about, or she, let me rephrase, she thought about benzos, but he was worried that, you know, she had a pretty high tolerance to that. Maybe that wouldn't really work for her. So she started researching other poisons, but realized it's not as easy as you might think, because it might not work, or it might take a really long time. You might not get the dose right. Maybe you wouldn't die, and lots of stuff could go wrong, was his point, or her point, as she researched it. There is a gap there because the prosecution, law enforcement, did not take all the computers. They did not take Angela's computer. So there are not searches from her computer that would show us, why, look, she had never searched for poison ever. And instead, we have James, well, not even James's computer. We have the computer from exam room 9. So there is a bit of a gap there where it would have been kind of useful to have had Angela's to prove the negative, that she wasn't searching for all this. But Angela's, according to this note that James Craig wrote, Angela asked him to go out and research poisons and said, yeah, I want you to, and so he said he was looking for ones that would be the best possible solution for her. But he said he had just had a change of heart, and he was no longer going to try to keep her from doing this. He was going to help her if she wanted help. And the prosecution pointed out that this story about what happened had to have happened within a 16-hour period. All of this discussion and this change of heart from no, don't do it, to let me help you, all of that was only 16 hours, because he came home from the trip on the 25th, the trip to Las Vegas, and by 2:34 p.m. on the 27th, he was already doing the very first search for poison. And he admits in this note that he was researching that. He admits that there were different ones he had looked at, and he had been considering this for her, that he bought. He admits he bought eye drops. He admits he ordered other poisons like arsenic, oleander, cyanide. He admits he ordered those online. And he said what the way they were going to do it was, she would have to actually do this. It was all her idea. He would just prepare the dosing so she could get it right. And he told her, you know, in our conversations now, we need to be really loving and sweet and put on a show in public like we're a happy couple. And she agreed to that. Now, that is James Craig's explanation for why it didn't look at all like they were having marital troubles. From Angela's point of view, it appeared they were working things out, and their conversations there in their kitchen seemed very normal, just sort of mundane. You know, people just, it doesn't seem like they're particularly angry with each other, except for the one fight they have. And other than that, they really seem to be pretty much a couple trying to deal with life and deal with having 6 kids. So they started, he said, with the tetrahydrozoline and the eye drops. That was the March 6th ER visit. But he said, you know, I don't know, maybe I didn't calculate it right. Maybe she didn't fully consume it. So a couple of days later, she decided on arsenic. on March 8th. Or the prosecution said, well, it must have been March 8th because a couple of days after the 6th would be March 8th. And she, according to James Craig, said, would you put this in my protein shake so I won't taste it? And then she chugged it down. And he said in this letter, she wasn't telling doctors, so I wasn't telling doctors. But she asked me to do this. She picked what she wanted to take. She was all Angela, Angela, Angela. And the prosecution pointed out one additional timeline problem, that there wasn't a lot of time between the 8th, when supposedly she took the arsenic, and the 9th, when she went back to the hotel. But for some reason, he ordered more poison on the 8th. He ordered the cyanide then. So they hadn't even really given the arsenic a full chance. Why did he need to order yet another poison? The whole thing is tragic, doesn't cover it. Sick, horrifying, I don't even know words, but it is really an appalling case. But it's also been absolutely bombshell after bombshell. I have just never seen a case remotely like this, with so much packed in and going on. I will take a few questions here. If you have one, if you would put your question marks at the beginning, I would appreciate that. And that'll help me spot it. All right, so we are looking, and I'm looking specifically for those question marks at the beginning so I can figure out where you are. We will be starting again on Monday with the rest of this, but I'm hoping to get to this timeline some over the weekend because there is so much to pack into this. The part that I think you are going to be absolutely stunned by is the back and forth exchange between Angela Craig, James Craig, the mistresses, and watching that in real time as they go through it. But there isn't an exhibit that's put that all together. So I'm going to try to put that together to see about it. They did do some of that today with Karen Kane, the orthodontist from Texas, the one he met in Las Vegas, Angela and James. But so there's a little bit of that, but that's what I want to put together for us. I think that's super important. All right, I'm looking for those question marks at the beginning. I got to talking. All right, so question from Pop Tart. How do you think the lawyers are doing? Well, first of all, I never really say anything negative about the lawyers. If you've been around, you know that, or at least it takes a lot. You have to basically not be trying. But in particular, in this case, the one of the two lawyers has been through a great deal personally, and yet she's there every day showing up. She hasn't given up, frankly, impressive fortitude. The other one has come in at the last minute. They are fighting a very technical case, and I don't blame them one bit for that. They are doing an absolutely great job with very few facts to work with. They are working as hard as they can on what they have to work on, which is trying to keep out the evidence and the documents that are most problematic for their client. And they're doing a great job at that, I would say. Now, the prosecution is overwhelming. There has been so much evidence. It's been presented very well. And with this final witness, it's being put together beautifully. I say the final witness. I don't know she's the final witness, but it has that ring to it where everything seems to be kind of coming together. I am absolutely fascinated to wait and find out what the defense is going to do, because right now they really don't have a lot of arguments on his behalf. It's been more of a defensive case. Let's keep these documents out. Let's keep these witnesses out. None of that worked. But, well, I say that. There may have been a number of things that did work that I don't necessarily know about. But there are things, as far as what I'm able to tell, there's a lot of evidence that's come in, and they have had objections, which for the most part have not been sustained. So I think that I'm very curious to see what they're going to do and whether or not James Craig will testify. I am really torn on that. They got so much from him. Could it get worse? I think the answer is yes. I don't think he should, but he's going to want to. That's my theory anyway. All right, so Jaja Kitty, speculating on the multiple poisons. Did he think he was being clever, or what is going on here? I don't know. maybe he was just getting it right. It's so bizarre and so disturbing because it was like a craft or a game. Remember, there was one email he sent to a friend who was a PhD in nursing. He was talking about Angela's condition and trying to figure out what it was. He said something like, this would be really fun, except of course that it's Angela being sick, except for that. And it's almost like that, like, let me see what exactly would work if I did this and that. I don't know why he did so many. Maybe he tried one or two and it just wasn't working. Maybe he was having trouble getting the information he needed about how to do it. And so he just kept trying. I don't know. It was really upsetting. Kaz, yes, I think his children are still, I don't know exactly, but I have heard that the son sits back and forth from one side to the other. I don't know for sure how they feel about him. Two of them testified for the prosecution. This is, I mean, you don't even have words. It's so bad for the family. So bad, so difficult. They've lost their mother and their father is accused of being the reason. Just horrendous. What can you see in the stream? Beth in the 305 asked me. Okay, so there are two different pictures, one of which they don't always have turned on. The main picture that you see is the witness sitting there kind of to the side, kind of like this. So they may turn toward you, but you're not totally to the side, but you see them more on profile view than. And then just past that, you can see the screen where they're projecting any videos or any exhibits that they want to show to the jury. So you can see that, but it's kind of turned to the side. So you wish you could go right in front of it, but you're seeing it more to the side. Then there's another camera that shows the judge and it points toward the lawyers, and you can see the defense table and the lawyer who is standing up at the podium if they're using the podium, and then you've got the judge. And that's a judge kind of in profile from the side again. They don't always turn on that camera. I'm not sure what the deal is on that, why they sometimes do and maybe they forget. I don't know, but that's kind of what you can see. Lee T wants to know, what was the business arrangement with this partner? Was it an LLC or just management, et cetera? It was some kind of partnership because he mentioned that there was a meeting of the partners and that James was invited but didn't show up to that meeting of the partners. So I don't know exactly the business formation, but I think it was definitely formalized and the group voted on things. The group also did some pooling and some profit sharing and things like that. I gather that there were extra shares for the two partners who had started it, which would be Ryan Redfern and his brother. Oh, there was one other fact I forgot to mention. I really meant to mention. There was also a comment from Bobby Olson that at some point after supposedly he had the syringe, that he was patting his pocket as if he had the syringe in there, and he kept patting that, like feeling that it would be there. That was something that the Bobby Olson suggested was happening in the hospital when he supposedly had the syringe. Heidi wants to know any takes on the jury reactions or lack thereof. I can't give us any information on that. I would love to know too. All right, let's see. Are his parents and family standing by him? EBH asks. His parents and family, I believe, are in the audience each day. I think they're sitting behind him, and I think they have been coming. So yes, would be the answer. Marcia, why did she go to the hospital if she was trying to die? That is an odd thing. Why would she keep going back to the hospital? And why even switch hospitals in hopes that you would get more or better care and they could figure out what was wrong? Again, that seems kind of unusual if that's what she's trying to do. Denise asking the question we all are, why didn't they allow the case to be on YouTube? Great question, Denise. And that's what the judge ruled. The judge ruled that it would not be broadcast. Most Colorado cases are open to the public. That's the typical, but she said this would be available. The media can watch on the WebEx, but it's not something where you can watch it through just ordinary YouTube. Just anybody can watch it. It's much more limited than that. So what has been, sorry, I can't read that. Okay, Jennifer, can someone ask where the in-home video came from, or is that not allowed? Are you not allowed to do a live video of your feed? No, I can't do that. The judge has made a complete rule that no one can copy or make any kind of rebroadcast or record what's being done in the courtroom. So I'm very grateful to be there. So I am not going to in any way violate what the court has asked us to do. So I will not be doing any of that, and I can't rebroadcast it because of a ruling. So that is a shame. I wish it were being broadcast. I think this is one a lot of people would be intrigued by and would want to watch. All right, the series of oversights is so blatant. Credit cards, video in the house, emails. Is it? I would like to know, and have not seen an answer to, why did someone install a video camera in the kitchen? Isn't that kind of weird? I mean, I would not want a video camera in my kitchen. Among other things, it would reveal to all the world that I never, ever cook. Never. And so I don't know that I'd want people knowing that. But also, I mean, aren't you like shuffling in your bathrobe and slippers? I mean, is this something you want people? Why? Why is that there? I can certainly see video cameras around the house. You have them at the front door, and I can get that, but I can't figure out why they had them in the kitchen. And so I don't know. I don't know who decided that. One of the things that's really strange to me is some of the comments that he made to people, like, for example, telling this woman that he was dating, had been dating 3 weeks, about the fact that Angela said that he had poisoned her once before or drugged her. And saying, by the way, just in case you were wondering, I would never drug you, which is hugely disturbing in someone that you're dating ever, no matter how long you've been dating, and only for 3 weeks, even more disturbing. So I can't explain it either, Allie. I am stunned by some of the choices made, just stunned. I think maybe, yeah. Thank you, Pop-Tart. I appreciate the super sticker very much. All right, we'll do a last one or two. Are you getting a feel as to how much more the prosecution has to offer in its case in chief? Midwest Mama 17 asked me. My theory is that this is very close to their final witness. The fact that she's putting everything together, I think if they had more to put in, they would have moved her even later. So the fact that she's there, I'm thinking this is pretty much about time to move into the defense case. A couple of other things that make me think that that might be the case is there was discussion yesterday afternoon as they were closing. The judge said, why don't we talk about scheduling, which is something judges often say when you're about to switch from one side to the other. So that was a possibility. And today they were super late getting started, like an hour and a half or something. I figured they were in intense discussions about something, which again could relate to some important piece of evidence or could relate to the fact that they're about to switch sides. So all of those, that's my theory, is that they're about to switch over to the defense really soon, maybe even Monday, maybe Tuesday. So I think that'll be next. I have no idea how long the case for James Craig is. Initially, they had said it would be about a 3-week long trial. And now we finished week 2. They didn't start till Tuesday or Wednesday of the first week. So, but roughly 2 weeks in. And so it would not be surprising for it to last all of next week. That's what they had planned on. All right. Well, I will look forward to seeing you all. Be sure to hit the like button on your way out and subscribe. We would love to have you back for more. We're going to be live probably 8:15-ish again on Monday. The trial goes all the way until 7 p.m. Eastern because it's on Mountain Time, which means I can't go at my usual 7 o'clock time. I just can't get ready in time. So I'll be going live about 8:15 probably on Monday, and I will see you then. Oh, we'll try that again. There we go.